Today, my special guest was Executive Director of Sail America for 5 years. Was the President / Managing Director of Ronstan North America from 2005 to 2016. In 2016, he was appointed Managing Director of Ronstan International, a position that he still holds. Welcome, Scott West.
Thanks, Steve. Let's see how we go. We got a lot to talk about here, huh?
We do. So we've got a few topics we're going to run through today. So Ronstan Marine, Ronstan Architecture, Ronstan Industrial, and we're going to talk about you and Ronstan, because you're the one I'm interviewing today. So straight off the top, what's it like being Managing Director of Ronstan?
Well, God, it's great. And it's, I guess I thought you were sort of asking me sort of how it came about. And one of the things, as I reflect on it, that was been good was we had a lot of visibility on it. And so I was able, Alistair knew he was going to retire for a bit of time. And we were able to talk about kind of some of the things that were changing in the business and how the fit might have worked for me. One of the strangest, unique parts, I joke with a lot of people when I talk about my job, is that I commute to Australia, right? So you know how often I'm down there, probably every 8, 10, 12 weeks, certainly no longer every 12 weeks until the pandemic. I'm coming down to Australia. I run my job and I run my position from the US. So we kind of work through a lot of, can it be done from the US? Does that make sense to the business? We are an absolutely global company. So it does help in a lot of regards. It gives me much better access to Europe than you might have from Australia, but it has a lot of inherent challenges in terms of time zones and distance and all that sort of stuff. But it fits well for us. It's an absolute honor to do it, and it's got all kinds of challenges. There's certain magic to being the boss that in some ways I don't think you can appreciate until you do it. I used to, as you said, I ran the U.S. operation for about 10 or 11 years there. And I always thought, yep, I'm the boss. I make my decisions, but there was always somebody above me. And when that gets taken away, it's very different and something that you got to kind of live through to appreciate.
Just to fill people in, Ronstan US, based in Rhode Island, USA.
Yep, we're in Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
Why Rhode Island? That's a question a few people ask me. Why are you always all the way up there in the northeast of the US?
Well, I mean, as you know, the US is a big place, and I could probably make you a pros and cons list for why we're here. We used to be in Florida, and I could make you a pros and cons list of why we were there. And I could also probably make a pretty compelling case to be somewhere in California in terms of being closer to Australia, better time zones. But Northeast is a population center. Northeast is a trend center in the U.S. And when we moved here, a lot more was made around here. You just kind of feel like you're a little bit in the heart of the industry and feel very well connected to a lot of people in the marine industry. So it fits really well to us. There's access to a lot of services. There's good shipping. There's good importing. It just works for the structure of our business.
And you've just moved. The Ronstan USA factory's just moved.
We've moved a whopping 2 miles. So it was a short distance, but a move is always filled with challenges. Do that move in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, at the end of our financial year, in the midst of the season, had all kinds of challenges, but our guys rallied and made it happen and worked however long it took. And so we got it done, and we're in a great new place. We've got much more area, and so we've got room to grow, and it's good. And it's a fresh start. Always good that way as well.
Beautiful. So your beginnings at Ronstan, how did that come about?
Well, so it's funny. The way I tell the story, I was the title? Executive Director of Sail America, which is the trade association for sailing in the U.S. And so Ronstan, like all sailing businesses, were members. And probably the single best part of that job was just being connected to people throughout the industry. So and Sail America, and we're going to have to edit this down because I'm answering too wordy, but Sail America had members from all parts of the sailing industry. So whether it was a boat builder, whether it was a distributor, whether it was a dealer, magazine, it wasn't business type. It was that sailing was the common denominator. So I got to know just about everybody, including Alan Prussia, Peter Doudney, and Alistair Murray. And I got involved with a project with Alistair that I always laugh about, called one of his sailing summits. And he kind of put the rough thing in place and said, all right, this will be the committee that does it. And then he went, oh, and by the way, I'm taking the next 10 weeks off for long service leave, so I'm going to be out of touch. And he just left the ball in my plate. And I remember being like, who the hell is this guy doing this? But it allowed me to work with the rest of the committee, and we put together a really good program. And funny enough, after we delivered it, Alistair kind of pulled me aside and with Pete and said, hey, how are you doing at Sail America? Would you ever be interested in making a move to Ronstan? And at the time, I had a lot going on, and you know what it's like, Steve. You're in the midst of a few projects, and you're bought in no matter what. And I sort of said, no way, no interest. We got too much going on. I got to see this through. I got to see that through. But it started a conversation that lasted over a lot of time. That once I got a few of those things done, I remember the ball started going, oh, that might be pretty cool. And so that I made the jump over. It was timed in for Pete's departure, where he went back to Australia. So there I was, left with the Ronstan US team.
And you've got quite a team over there in the US. There's people positioned all over the country that fill many roles: architecture, marine sales, and then you've got the warehouse there in Rhode Island, US. So it's quite the business setup over there. Other than becoming managing director, what's been your personal career highlights at Ronstan?
Hold on, let's pause for a sec there.
Yeah.
Let me fire back at you, though. So that's my sort of how the heck did I get hired at Ronstan? Tell me how you ended up here. How'd you get involved?
How did I start? I was a fridge mechanic, fixing all the Coles and Safeways, or we're now called Woolworths fridges here in Melbourne, and pretty well established. Done my apprenticeship and done 6 years on the trade and the tools. It was great pay, good money, and but it was a hard lifestyle. It was go to work and not come home till 10 at night during summer, and not have any holidays during summer. Have to work Christmas Day and everything like that. And I liked the work. I didn't like the industry. And I was at a dinner one night and someone said, oh, Ronstan's looking for a guy to work for. And I was like, oh, I was looking for something new. And I was like, geez, that interests me. So I and the guy that I went to dinner with had the contact of the career finder that was looking for the role for Ronstan. So I made contact, and he put my contact on to Ronstan, and I got a call, come in. I sat there in Pete Doudney's office, who's my direct boss, and I think I was in my trade uniform and shorts, and we talked things over. And obviously I was reasonably established as a sailor. I'd just come back from Barcelona, having a pretty good performance over there, and we talked some things through, and went away thinking, possibly, I don't know, we'll see what happens. And it was a really good conversation with Pete. And came a few days later, got a phone call saying, we're interested, would you like to take the role? Come back and have another interview. So I went back and had another one, and it just rolled from there. And 7 years later, I'm in love, and I don't think I'll ever leave unless she's kicked me out. So it's
well, so that's one thing you and I have in common then. Yeah. Pete Doudney employed both of us.
Yeah, exactly. He did.
Because so I had the quiet chat with Alistair, but like I said, as we worked over time, it was Pete's responsibility to hire his replacement. And I always tell this story. I'll be fascinated to hear if yours is like it. I remember the interview. We had to go do it covertly because we didn't want anybody to know. We were both kind of keeping it on the quiet. So we went to this quiet little meeting room, and I swear we walked in and we said, sort of, how's it going? We knew each other. And then Pete started talking, and I swear to God, he spoke uninterrupted for like 3 hours. And then he went, okay, so what else? And he spoke for that. I remember going, I don't think I'm actually speaking during this interview. It was pretty funny. I don't know. Did he talk for a long time in yours?
Pete talks for a long time, all the time. So probably most likely, the one thing that Pete does really well is make you comfortable and make you feel accepted in the situation that you're in. So straight away, came in, and even when I first started, it just felt like home, and it's been like that ever since. And you know, as you and I both know, my working relationship with Pete's been fantastic throughout the years and still is. So he's a great boss to have, and I love working with him, and as I do with everyone at Ronstan. So it's a great company, and I don't want to make this, like you said, too long, but yeah, I came from a completely different background. I wasn't sales orientated, and Pete's trained me up to the role that I do now. So it's been really good. Your personal career highlights, other than being made managing director of Ronstan International.
Yeah, well, you gave me that headline, or sorry, you gave me a heads up that was going to be one of the questions. It's interesting, as always in some managerial capacity. I mean, in some ways, I'm feeling best when things are just going well, which is a pretty boring way to answer that. But I looked back, I'll answer it sort of two ways. When I was running Ronstan US, we had just, and it probably has to do with why I'm not the managing director, but we just had a number of years where each year we just got a little bit better. We just kept getting, and I've looked back and like, we had a couple of big jumps in terms of sales and whatever. And it was usually, a lot of times, it was the great work you did one year that it was almost a whole year later when you got to reap what you sowed. But I just feel like we had a winning streak of kind of 4 or 5 years where we were just building. And, you know, it's on reflection, but I just felt like we had the team all aligned. We had the right guys in the right jobs, trying to get to the right places. And sure, we battled and we would argue and whatever. But at the end of the day, I felt like we were kind of pulling on the rope in the same direction. And so just to kind of string together that degree of a winning streak was really good. It's funny, I laughed. I felt like you wanted more of a really specific one. And I remember being really proud when we got the Puma distribution, or as you would say, Puma, when they decided to come in. And they came into the industry knowing nobody. They had the whole Volvo Ocean Race thing, and we just got a little sniff of it, funny enough, in Australia. And I went and got references of who we were, and I got in their office in like a matter of days, and I had them signed up before they got to know anybody else. So I remember just being how proud I was, and we had kind of a year or two of just unbelievable success. And then it ended in a complete train wreck. I mean, it was just so hard to get out of, and they were, in a lot of ways, fun to work with, but such a difficult company, and I don't like the way they kind of treated different people. But so it was a highlight and in some ways a low light. From managing director standpoint, it's probably more a little bit like I said the first time. We've had some good years. We've had some down years as well. So it's harder to string together so many years. But it's just when I feel like, God, look at us go. We've got we never have everybody. We got a lot of the right people. We got happy employees. We got guys working where they're best set, and kind of trying to get to the same place. And this has been the hardest year on that because it's been so different. But yeah, there's just been times where I think, how good is this? And like I said earlier, my setup is very unique being here in the US. And I have moments often when I'm in Australia where I think, no, we've got everybody in the right place, in the right seats. Lane's taking care of the money. Lou's got Europe under control. Lou's got product development. Tim's got Australian manufacturing going, and all our managers are just doing what they do best. So it's a little bit of a boring answer, but I can tell you that's when I think, oh, this is so good.
Yeah, it feels really good at the moment from an employee, perspective.
Which is amazing, Steve, when you think about what we've gone through. And in fact, it's funny, I didn't even answer, but like I know
Alistair. I know Alistair's answer to this question is leading the company through the global financial crisis. And I think when you look back at your time as being at the helm of Ronstan, whenever that ends, you'll probably look back at this specific time with the pandemic that's going on and guiding the company through what has been interesting. It's actually astonishing what the figures are doing at the moment. And we don't know what's still to come, but I think you'll look back at this time and go, "Oof, that was."
But the figures, in some ways, we're just riding the trends that everybody's going with. But what we went through, and everything we went through the pandemic, like I've just been blown away by the people at Ronstan. And I mean, you know, because you were part of it, I was part of it. We had to ask everybody to make some sort of sacrifice. And okay, nobody really has a choice. It's not like anybody can go, no, I'm not going to make that sacrifice. But what I found special is the number of different people who reached out to me and said, are you going okay? This has got to be really tough on you. Or thanks for what you're doing to protect the business. I'm sure there had to be complaints behind the scenes, but like I just didn't hear it. And to me, that's when you go, we're fine. We've got what it takes to get through this tough time. And it's funny. I had these notes under what's special about Ronstan, and I went with the Richard Branson quote was, happy employees equal happy customers. I spend a lot more time, and sometimes I get criticized for being too internally focused, but I spend a lot more time worrying that our employees are happy and trusting that will make sure that our customers are happy.
Your background in sailing, or other than the sailing industry. So I can see behind you that you're roaring along on a boat there with your finger up at us. What are you doing?
No. So look, as I told you when we were setting this up, my sailing pedigree is an absolute insecurity of mine, right? So I did grow up around boats. My father was really into sailing, and I did start sailing from a young age. But for whatever reason, I didn't ever get the competitive bug. I didn't ever really stick to it through those formative kind of years, 15 to whatever, 25. So I do a bit of cruising, sailing. Oh, and one thing we didn't talk about in my career, I worked at Sunsail for the first part of my marine industry career. So I did a lot of chartering. I've sailed throughout the Caribbean. I've been on a number of different charters. I still consider that the best vacation and probably the best way to go sailing. But my sailing pedigree is very average. And I often wonder, how can I be running Ronstan when I'm not a world-class sailor? But then I look around and I go, oh, well, because we've got plenty of world-class sailors. We've got guys that are at the front of the fleet. We've got guys and not just competitive. We've got guys that do all different kinds of sailing. And so I feel like we've got that base covered. I laugh all the time because in my role, I do get invited to different sailing events or join in, and people make some assumptions. And I always say, hey, don't count on me for much. And they always go, no, you'll be fine. And then I get out there and I almost never get a call back. The only person that invites me back for competitive sailing is Ben Moon. And I just think that's because he knows where his bread's buttered and he knows to be nice to me on that. And anyway, my picture, that is the Newport Regatta on a Viper. Ben's driving. The guy in the middle actually was the boat owner. And I was there for my hiking, but it was absolutely perfect Newport conditions for a Viper Regatta, and we had so much fun. And that is coming to the finish line in a race that we won. And as I said, it's the hang loose, not the middle finger that I'm showing.
I don't know a regatta that's not fun when Ben Moon's involved. So yeah, you just can't not have fun. It could be light and nothing happening, and you'll still have fun at that regatta because Ben Moon is an absolute unit. The picture behind me is the Ronstan Regatta. So
at McRae?
Yeah, at McRae. So the first 2 years that we've had it, the first day's been no wind whatsoever, and there's barely been any sailing. We might have got one race in, and it's been a drifter. But it's been an absolute. That first day is a riot because we put on the barbecue and we put on a few kegs, and there's a band playing, and it's just a great atmosphere. And that regatta is going to continue just because of basically that fact. So
yeah. So what's yours, Steve? Though, so you've had some of the most fun regattas, and you've also had some of the pinnacle of competition. You got to pick one regatta and say that was the best one I ever did. Which one is it?
It's Barcelona. It stands out.
A-class ACAT World, right?
ACAT World. It was actually Europeans, but they're basically the same thing because everyone from around the world comes. So all the Americans come, all the Aussies come, New Zealanders and all that come as well. And the Europeans are only put on in Europe when they haven't got the Worlds in Europe. So they don't like to not have a big regatta each year. So we were lobbed up, and I was supposed to be on a certain boat, but that boat weighed in like 30 kilos overweight, and the manufacturer didn't want to sail it and wasn't interested, and I didn't want to sail it because it was too heavy, and I knew I wouldn't be competitive. And at the last minute, I got thrown a boat from DNA, a Dutch company, said, "Oh, we've got one that we could lend you, come and sail." And I had a mast and I had a sail, so I put it together, and I had a blinder. I didn't put a foot wrong. I had one bad day on the light day, which tends to be my Achilles heel at the moment because I like fast and fun. And yeah, I come fourth and I had an absolute blinder. I had a first in one race where I should have had a third, and all of a sudden the front two leaders were fighting for the win, and I snuck through like Steve Bradbury and got the win. But yeah, it was by far the best because I had a lot of pressure on me prior, then was stressed because of the boat, and then I don't know, just relaxed and sailed. And then there's probably one other one, and this is Wanji, where on the last day I had a fight with Nathan Atteridge to get third, and Glenn Ashby pretty much won it, and Stevie Bruin had also, they were fighting for first, and Nathan and I were fighting for third, and normally I falter on the last day. I have a really good start to the regatta, and by the end I put too much pressure on myself and stuff it up. But this one, I don't know, I just dug deep and had an absolute blinder, and again, I pipped Nathan by a point and got third. So that's definitely one that's on my highlight. That was at Wanji in Lake Macquarie at the Australian Nationals. So, yeah, Nathan doesn't put a lot of time into A's.
Australian Nationals, and you're going against Ashby, Outeridge.
A class is tough when it comes to Australia. Like, it's basically like going to another worlds because you go to the Nationals and it's the same guys. It's hard to be the best Australian, let alone the world champion. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to our next topic now, which is Ronstan Marine. So, how does Ronstan differ from its competition, and what's Ronstan's edge?
Well, so again, I'm going to spring right off the comment I made about our people, and again, build off happy employees equal happy customers. I don't know what our competitors' relationships are like with their customers, but I know that ours are special, and I know that ours go for years. I know that ours go beyond business. And so I think that that's kind of the foundation. And obviously we put a lot of resource and effort into designing and making the best products. We make, solve problems for people, make sure we've got the absolute right product for the right application. And then of course we build a brand that we think people love around the world. So you put a powerful brand, happy customers, and the right products together. And, again, I think that that's the secret ingredient that's going to get people that has people looking to Ronstan.
Why should people choose Ronstan products? Like, what differs the Ronstan product to the competition? Why are we better?
Well, I try to look first at the customer, and I hope that our design team does. I hope that you do. I hope that, ultimately, if we solve problems for our customers, and that's probably all departments, not just sailing, right? So we've got people who have some sort of rope handling, some sort of tension, some sort of, problem that they need solving, and we figure out the best way to do that. We improve their experience. We improve their sailing. And you know what it's like. You go out with somebody, and people make boats last forever, right? And you go out and you just look around and you go, geez, this boat has such good bones. It's got such a solid hull, but man, you got to just upgrade your hardware and you will be so much happier and you will get so much more out of using your boat. And so hopefully they look and that's the way we think. Like, that's why we've got the product that's going to make your sailing experience better, more so than, this Ronstan's product is better than this XYZ product, or, again, the way we're better depends on the application. Sometimes it's because we're lighter. Sometimes it's because we're stronger. Often it's because we're both. But it's focusing on the customer and making sure that the customer is getting a better experience from it.
We actually have Ronstan International. It was started in Australia, but we have the US, we have Europe being Anderson, but also Ronstan, and we have Batam Island as our factory. So
the way I would describe it, I guess what I'll answer here is like, Ronstan's all over the world, but we're all over the world in different ways, right? So what's that look like a little? So to me, there's two elements to that. There's what's our distribution and how does our product get around the world? And in that respect, it's through a robust and diverse distribution network. And that includes I mean, in a lot of ways, Ronstan USA is just a distributor, just like our distributors across Europe or in Canada or whatever. And in some ways, same with Australia. We obviously have a factory that makes stuff there on the heart and soul of Ronstan's Australia. But your role and Pete's role, you guys are distribution, and so we try to make it as easy as possible to get the right Ronstan product, no matter where you are. And part and parcel with that is we try to make sure you've got service backup as well, and you've got a place to go. And I think Ronstan's a little bit old-fashioned in that regard. We're so easy to get in touch with when you look at how hard it is to get in touch with certain companies. And I'm thinking outside of marine here, but you got to send 4 emails and try chat or whatever else. I mean, Ronstan, I think, is far easier to get in touch with, and it's because we've got this robust and diverse distribution network around the planet. But on top of that, we've got 4 Ronstan companies. We've got HQ in Australia, where, again, like I said before, the heart and soul of Ronstan, whether it's our design, whether it's our finance, whether it's our marketing, it all sort of starts in Australia. But we've got a company in Denmark that is primarily manufacturing. We've got a company in Indonesia that is 100% manufacturing. And then we've got our company in the US that is 100% sales and distribution. And so we take contributions, ideas, and leadership from all of those and in each area of expertise. So it is interesting. We have a lot of meetings with a lot of different people, right? So how do we make something better? We've got a really robust, I keep using that word, but a really experienced and smart team of engineers that talk about the best way to make things. We've got engineers that talk about the best way to design things. We've got sailors and salespeople that talk about the best way to kind of fill market needs. So it's how we do it.
So Ronstan is really established in the marine market, but we also have an architectural section. It's known as tensile architecture. Speak to me about tensile architecture and Ronstan's part in that industry.
Okay, so just for some historical context, I mean, Ronstan's been doing rigging products for marine for decades, and it still now goes back over 20 years, where we sort of said, geez, a lot of this, there's a trend of this kind of rigging product making it into architectural. And it did start with some pretty simple stuff, handrails primarily, and balustrade. And we use that as a starting point and really then took our product development to evolve the product to where it is more appropriate for architectural. And it's a silly little example, but it always is a good one. For marine rigging, it's got to be adjustable, right? You got to be able to adjust almost on the fly. Oftentimes, for architecture, you want the exact opposite, right? You can't fiddle with it. You can't have somebody come by with a Leatherman and screw around. It's got to be vandal proof. It's got to stand the test of time with the least amount of adjustment. So we evolved our product to do that. As we had sales success there, we also realized, hey, there's opportunity for some vertical integration. There's opportunity for us to be what our original term was, a solution provider. And that was very much in Australia. And we started putting in the resources. We started hiring expertise for architectural. And so over the years, we've had architects on staff. We've had engineers on staff who are focused purely on the construction industry. And we now do the design. We now work with architects and engineers to specify our product into some very complex tensile architecture situations. It's probably, not to talk too cavalierly or too casually, but it's probably the sexiest part of our business. It's easy to find a project write-up that we do and just post it on my personal social media channels and say, believe it or not, this is what Ronstan does, and people get blown away. They just kind of don't connect the two. But there's a lot of science. There's a lot of expertise that we have learned over the years through doing. And in Australia in particular, that part of our business is absolutely a construction business, and we've got some of the best in the business there. And it's exciting. The opportunities are quite large for us, but it's different. It's grown up into a very different part of our business, and so it's a good challenge for us is how we integrate those elements of our business. There's some really good synergies, and then there's some really good challenges where it's so different you can't apply the same rules, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in my time at Ronstan, I've seen some big jobs go through the architectural department, and the team has to get in there together. And some of them have stayed away on jobs that been in like Adelaide or Sydney, and had to stay away for weeks. So Rundle Mall, where we did all the contemporary lighting down Rundle Mall, and had to do it at night when the street was closed. That was a big one. So it lights up that promenade down there. The other one that was a really big one was Taronga Zoo, where we were part of building the new tiger enclosure. Was it tiger or was it lion? Tiger enclosure.
We've also done the chimps. We've done 2 there. We've done, and we've done, believe it or not, even though it's far less technical, we've done elephant enclosures in the Smithsonian Zoo in the U.S. I mean, we've done, again, now it's going to sound like a commercial, but if you don't know what Ronstan is from an architectural world, and you go to Ronstan's architectural website and just look at the projects, you will be blown. If you don't know it, you will be blown away.
I mean, and anyone that's been to Melbourne will have driven past one of our architectural jobs, is the Balti Bridge, all the fall restrained fencing that's on the side of the Balti Bridge. That's all Ronstan. So, and that was a huge job in a very short lead time. So that had the whole factory.
Yeah. We solved some very interesting problems in the world of architectural, and it takes some different things. I mean, you must just see it, like, how different are the jobs of the guys that sit on the other side of the wall from you in terms of compared to you? You both have your share of problems and challenges and opportunities, but they are very different, aren't they?
Yeah, very different. And that leads me into my next question is, which services do Ronstan offer in the architectural department? And they're so vast.
Yeah, it's almost, I'm not even sure I can answer. I mean, really, we call it design and construct, we call it project, we call it solutions providing. But I mean, really, if somebody's got, whether it's a facade, whether it's catenary lighting, whether it's any sort of tensile architectural project, we can help with the design, we can help solve a problem, we can help bring an architect's vision to reality. And we've got the resources in place to do that. We are, I would say, look, I'll quote the guy that runs our architectural department. We apply the science. We make sure we do it right, and we do it at a high level of quality, and we're the company that people count on to get it done right.
Leads us into our next topic, which is industrial. A lot of people don't understand or know that we're what parts of industrial sector that we're in, and there's a lot, and it's very vast. Speak to us about the industrial applications that Ronstan's involved in.
How do you answer industrial?
Industrial is basically everything that doesn't fit into marine and architectural goes straight into the industrial category.
That's how I answer as well. My wise guy thing is, it's everything we make that doesn't end up on a boat or a building.
That's pretty much it. So,
but then people, all right, but so what's the example? And let's take turns. So, I mean, I kind of put it into 4 different categories. We do a lot for defense. We've got a pretty nice niche in fitness. We do a lot in fitness. We do this might be an American term, MROP. Does that mean anything to you? Do you know what that means?
Mm-hmm.
MROP is maintenance, repair, operation, and production. It's kind of supplies that go into manufacturing or whatever. And it's, in a lot of cases, where I would call architectural our sexiest business. MROP is probably our least sexy business. If you saw it, you probably wouldn't know it was Ronstan, but it's an important part of our business, and we do sell a lot there. And then there's what I would call industrial OEM, which is just the prototyper, the guy who's making something, and the uses are almost too varied. They're too individual, but I'd go back to the same product philosophies that we have for marine and architectural. People have a problem, and we try to help find the application to solve them. And when we solve them, everybody wins. But it's helping those guys find us, or it's us finding them that's the big challenge from a business standpoint.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes the needle in the haystack, but when you find that needle, it can be quite prosperous. And if you, as you and I both know, some of our best customers are in that industrial sector. They might buy 1 or 2 parts, but they buy a lot of them.
Yeah.
And
what do you like? So, what do you like about our industrial business, Dave? Or what drives you nuts about it?
What I like most about it, there's so much opportunity. When you do get that needle in the haystack, people go, "Oh, actually, I can use this," and then they quickly can use something else. And as I said, it can turn into maybe only 3 or 4 parts, but that business seems to keep rolling on. We've got a truck curtain manufacturer that we do a lot with. We've got irrigation businesses that do dam walls for irrigation purposes up on farms that use our bushes and sheaves to help lift up concrete walls. We've got Pilates manufacturers. We've got caravan manufacturers that use our traveller cars to slide in and out pods, sort of things. In concluding, you're the best man to speak to when I asked the question, where do you see Ronstan next?
This is a very unique time. Normally, we're in the early part of a financial year. We've got a business plan locked and loaded, and we're thinking of kind of the next multiple year window. And that's still kind of how we're thinking, but there's been a little bit of a pause to that. These last, back to March, basically. For these last 6 months, our horizon has gotten so much closer. I mean, where we are always talking multiple years, what's down the track. In the last 6 months, it's been what's the next month? What's the next month? Now we've come beyond that. We're not in that mode anymore, but we're just kind of transitioning back out. So to me, we've weathered a storm and we're in a great position for the next year. And I feel like we've got all the right places, people in the right places. We've got products being released. We've got, how exciting some of the projects we're working on. So we see that through. We stick to our knitting, and we focus on having a great season in Australia as we finish up the season in the Northern Hemisphere. Longer term, we need to get back to the longer range planning. So we need to answer that question that you've asked here is what's Ronstan look like in the next 10 years? And I mean, I guess if I answer honestly, I really don't know. I think sailing, and I'd like to spend a few minutes with you talking about what we really think about sailing as opposed to more just Ronstan and what the sailing marketplace will look like. I think it's evolving faster than it has in the last few years. I think there's been contraction, and I don't think the number of sailors is getting smaller, but I don't think it's getting bigger. And I think the industry is getting smaller. I think there's going to be fewer brands available. I'm quite confident Ronstan will be one of those brands. I think there'll be some industry consolidation. And I also think that our business will continue to evolve outside of marine, where we'll probably be more evenly spread. I mean, our history is in sailing. We've grown up now in architectural and industrial, and I can expect to see that trend continue to where we're probably a little more evenly spread. Maybe our departments are more demarked, more clearly separated. And yeah, Ronstan becomes more about, again, solving those problems no matter what application it's for. So Steve, I know we're getting towards the end, but let's have a little bit of fun. Let's thank the people that have been watching. How about you and I each give away a pair of gloves, right? So let's just make it dead simple. If anybody's still listening and wants to get their hands on a pair of the best sailing gloves you can, if you're based in America, drop me an email at swest@ronstan.us, and the first person who sends me that email, I'll send you a free pair of gloves. And if you drop Steve an email in Australia at sbrayshaw@ronstan.com.au, Steve will send you a pair of gloves, and we'll be happy to do it. Thank you for your time, for listening. Thank you for your support of Ronstan, and you can let us know if the gloves are as good as we say they are. Sound like a plan, Steve?
Sounds like a plan. We'll even throw in some stickers to throw on your boat too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next interview, I don't know who you've got teed up next, but come in with another goodie, and let's just try to make this part of the habit. So again, just have some fun with it and see who's listening right to the end.
Perfect.